question for the group. How many of you either use i2b2 or have heard of i2b2? All right. My 5-minute talk is probably going to be 3 minutes. All right. What I wanted to do is I wanted to give you just a little bit of little history about i2b2. It's been around for a while. A couple of words about the worldwide adoption and also the work around supporting clinical research networks. And also let you know a little bit about the nonprofit foundation that has just been put in place. So back in 1999, the Laboratory of Computer Science at Mass General Hospital, and this laboratory was in place, I think in the early, maybe late 60s, early 70s. This was the birthplace of MUMPS. So this place was a real think tank, and they did a lot of innovative stuff over the years that have really changed the way we deal with informatics in the healthcare setting. They developed this thing called the Research Patient Data Registry, RPDR. And this was, this wasn't rocket science. This was a data warehouse of all of the clinical data that was collected as part of the patient encounters. And it allowed people to query for cohorts of patients, and then it returned identified data for as long as you had IRB approval. It included a self-service tool. So, this doesn't sound exciting now, but back at that, in its time, it really was quite innovative. So fast forward 5 years, in 2004, Harvard was awarded one of the 4 NCBC grants. And they named it Informatics for Integrating Biology and the Bedside. So if you ever wondered what i2b2 stood for, that's what it is. And it was software for organizing clinical data that was optimized for clinical research. And the focus was it was going to be open source and a portable, extensible application framework. It used the data model from the Research Patient Data Registry that was developed out of the Lab of Computer Science as its base. And so that was kind of the history. The goal was to bring clinical data to the fingertips of researchers, motherhood and apple pie. And so we also included a way to include extensions and plugins. And this is an example of a genomic a plugin. And maybe a little bit later we'll hear about a plugin for a RedCAP. So it's used across the US. This is an outdated slide as usual. It's hard to track when it's open source, but it's used across the US and in Europe. And then I'm not going to go through this, but there's lots and lots of CTSAs, academic medical centers. Insurance companies are using it. It's got a pretty big footprint in the European market, and many companies have used this basis as well. So quite a good adoption. We are, as far as research networks, this is one example, a collaboration with Shrine, and this is all about taking i2b2 at multiple implementations and allowing the querying across those organizations to find cohorts of patients. There's also a basis of PCORNet, and the new ACT network will be using i2b2 as a base as well. And so the adoption it has continued to grow, and so it's got a fairly large footprint. So about a little over a year ago, Sean Murphy, who was the person that really manages this, decided that it was time to really develop a nonprofit foundation to support the continuing, ongoing support of i2b2. And the initial goal was just to continue the development and support of the software, enhance the communication and partnership of the user base, and so and then he brought me in, and I've been around this space for quite a while, but decided it was time for me to kind of get off of some of the corporate stuff I was working on and focus on this full time. So this is what I'm doing. I think that the next step will be to develop kind of an Apache model to really move forward and bring this to the forefront. We're currently, I will say, and this is the last thing I'll say, is we're working on a partnership with Transmart. A lot of you may have not heard about Transmart. It also uses i2b2 as its data model. They're more focused on translational research, where i2b2 is clinical research. So it's a very nice partnership, very nice marriage. And here's our ecosystem. And I think maybe at the end of this day, we may want to talk about Paul putting RedCAP in this ecosystem as well, because I think it fits together so nicely. So I will turn this over to Paul.